Have you ever struggled with making decisions in your life? Whether it be important decisions or just the most trivial everyday decisions the simple decisions. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the 4 things that are stopping you from making effective decisions. If you stay until the end, I'll also give you a free gift. Stay tuned for that.
I think we all have the point. Everyone just tries to like
Indecision. That's the number one thing that's one of the main things that all of my clients struggle with. They want to do something, they kind of know what they want already, but they just cannot take action for some reason. Or maybe they don't know what they want. That's why they're indecisive. Number one, the most important thing before you even think about making a decision is that you have to know where you want to go. You kind of got to know who you are, where you want to go, what your values are, what you value in life, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and so forth. Because if you don't know those basic things about who you are, clarity about where you want to go as well, then no matter the decision you take, it's not going to fulfill the right end. It's not going to fulfill the right vision. You gotta start with the end in mind, like I like to say. You need to have this sort of vision for your life, this vision for where you want to go and who you want to become. Because really, if you know that, if you know the foundations of all that, then all of your decision making will be so much easier. You just need to know, be aligned with who you are, what kind of person you are, what kind of person you're not, what kind of things you value, what kind of things you do not value, and then it'll be so much easier. So number one thing that's stopping you from making an effective decision is not knowing what you want. What the hell do you want, really? Ask yourself this. What do I want? What do I truly want? Not what other people expect me to want, not what other people expect me to say or do or whatever you want to do with your life. Not what the environment expects of me, but what do I truly want myself, right? If you really ask that question, it'll be a lot easier to make decisions. So for example, you're at a party, people pressure you to drink, and then you ask yourself, well, what do I truly want? Do I truly want to drink right now? Or do I truly want to remain sober right now? If the answer is you truly want to drink, then do it. If the answer is you truly want to remain sober, then do it. That's what you're going to do. And then with that, compass in mind, knowing what you want, then you're not going to make any false decisions, any decisions that are not aligned with who you are, for example. Just something to keep in mind. So what do you truly want? It's really a process of discovering yourself, discovering what your values are, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And that's really the foundation of that, having clarity on that. Number 2 thing that's stopping you from making effective decisions is perfectionism. You're waiting for the perfect time to make the decision. You're waiting for the perfect moment to make the decision. You're waiting for the perfect opportunity because you think that there's going to be a better opportunity out there, and that stops you from making decisions, right? So for example, you decide whether you want to start your business or whether you want to keep staying at your job. That's an important decision to do. And because you're like, oh well, you know what, a better time will come for me to start my business. Maybe if I'll save a little bit more money before I start, when I have enough time freed up and all that, then I'll start my business. And then you realize when you actually get to that point, that something else comes up. Like, oh yeah, well, I have enough money right now, to get started, but I really need to get my health on check. I really get to get my health on point and all that. You start exercising, whatever, and then you get into better health because, this is more urgent in your business. And then you're like, well, I have kids. Yeah, I gotta take care of my kids. It's like this endless cycle of excuses, really, disguised as perfectionism. And perfectionism, which is pretty much a fucking curse, I like to call it, disguised as something beautiful and as a quality, right? People even state perfectionism as one of their character strengths. Or, what is your greatest weakness that, you're told at a job interview as a question. You say, I'm a perfectionist, which is like the most stupidest of things. I think there's no such thing as good perfectionism. I think all perfectionism is a form of avoidance, a form of self-criticism, it's really a form of procrastination. Perfectionism is a form of procrastination, a form of self-criticism that justified by some sort of higher virtue, higher standard of execution, higher standard of excellence. No, it's really just you're afraid to put yourself out there 99% of the time. You're afraid to step it up and actually make something of yourself. There's so many examples of people who are perfectionists, and it just makes the decision even worse. So for example, have you ever heard of that video game called Duke Nukem that's they postponed the release for 10 to 20 years because there was so high expectations, and they kept redoing the game, the game Duke Nukem, and for years. And then they released the game, and it actually sucked. According to the reviews, it's they just killed that beast 10 years ago. Just release it 10 years ago instead of always redoing it, and just ended up being a crappy game. Are you postponing decisions out of fear, out of perfectionism? Really, well, you know that you're just gonna take that fucking decision right now. All right? Are you lying to yourself? Are you being true to yourself? No matter whether you take a good or bad decision, because maybe that's why you're afraid of taking decision, because you're afraid that you'll take the wrong one. Every decision that you make will have pros and cons. Every decision that you make will have good things and bad things about them. And regardless of the decision you take, even if it feels like between killing one baby or the other, that's pretty much what it can feel like sometimes. Understand that you will always learn from that decision. There's always growth in decision making. Even if you make the wrong one, try to make the best one, right? Even if it's not the best down the line, you can always change and make another decision. And then it's like a tree, right? It's like a diagram. So you have between two options. So you take this one, okay, then you go on that path. And then as you go further on that path, two more things will come up. And then you can choose, right? And then you keep going like that, and you keep going up in your personal development. And that's how you should be moving in life, in my opinion. You shouldn't be agonizing about making the perfect decision, because really in inaction, in the lack of movement, really you're pretty much gonna stunt yourself, stunt your growth. Number 3 thing that is stopping you from actually making decisions is other options. Other options, right? Everything that you do in life, it's you don't do that one thing, right? But how about all those zillions of things that exist in the cosmos of the universe that I could be doing, right? I like to say the relationship analogy, where it's you can never, it's you go with someone, in a romantic relationship, but if you go in a relationship and then in mind you're always well, how about those 7.5 other billions of people on Earth? Maybe another person is better. It's dude, it's it's neurotic. It's insanity. Of course, there will always be other options in the cosmos. To be alive is that there are zillions of options. There's zillions of degrees you could study in. There's zillions of careers you can go in. There's whether it be becoming an engineer or becoming the poop cleaner at a zoo, elephant poop cleaner at a zoo. There's zillions of career paths you can take, right? There's limited amounts of careers and choices. But to make a decision, there's the word decision, there's the word incision. Pretty much what you're doing is, when you're making a decision, you're cutting with a knife. You're ruthlessly carving that one option that you want, just that one thing that you want, and you're saying no to everything else, right? And that's something pretty much people who cannot make decisions, a lot of people who, really have this sort of extroverted intuition of looking outside, always intuiting about what they could be doing instead. Those are a lot of those people that I coach with, right? Some of my clients, they just cannot make their mind, because they always see endless possibilities. How about that other thing, but that thing? And it's it drives them nuts. It drives them crazy. It drives me crazy too. It's you have to stop looking at other possibilities at a certain moment in time. It's okay, you've looked at the possibilities, that you could be, doing with your life. Let's say, okay, well, I could be a dentist, I could be an engineer, I could be a doctor, I could be an architect, I could be an artist, whatever. You look at all those things and you're like, if you really were to weigh out the options, you'd probably find one or two that are really like the main ones. And you can target on that one. One thing you can do when there's too many options around you, okay, is that look at yourself and be like, let's say, okay, take two options, okay? And ask yourself, okay, well, is there a way that I can try these options without actually, committing 100%? Is there a way you can try these, kind of like when you wine tasting, you want to like order a bottle of wine and they let you taste it or whatever. You select, you taste 3 different wines and you're like, okay, that's the one I want. Is there a way you can do that with your decisions? If not, then something you can do is you visualize each option. And from that visualization, so let's say you had the, choice between moving to Italy or moving to, Canada. So you picture yourself, okay, let's say I did move to Italy, and then you picture yourself like living there, eating pasta, whatever it is. You're like, okay, how would that feel like? What would my life be like? Would it be more fun? Would it be better? Would it be like more, more fulfilling? Then you imagine yourself living in Canada. Okay, well, all that snow, that eating poutine and whatever. How would that feel like, right? The free healthcare system, well, whatever it is. Okay, so you picture all of that in your head, and then see if that helps you make a decision. But really, let's say it's harder than that. Let's say the decision is really difficult and it is a life-changing decision that you want to make, okay? Basically, you separate those two options. Let's take two options into life number 1 and life number 2. Let's say life number 1 is, I'm not going to give you, let's say life number 1 is, you go live to Italy and you pursue your dreams and passions, okay? And life number 2 is you stay where you are in your own city and you continue the same job that you're doing right now, and you actually end up, you stay with the friends that you have right now, ordinary life, at the same job that you're at, okay? So you look at life number 1, you're like, okay, what would I gain from going on life number 1? Like, what would be the positive things I would gain in life number 1? And then following life number 1, then you picture yourself and like, okay, well, what experiences would I be missing on by saying no to life number 2? Right. So then, so if I were to, for example, move to Italy, I would, start my business, I don't know, whatever, pursue my dreams there, whatever your dreams are. But then I would miss out on my friends in my city. I wouldn't see them as often. I would have to quit all my friends at job, at my current job, and it would be sad, for a moment and all that. That's what will happen if I were to take life number 1. And then you do the inverse. Like, okay, what if I were to pursue life number 2, right? What are all the experiences that I would gain? What are like all the amazing things I would get from that? What would I get from that? Okay. And then if I were to follow life number 2, okay, then what would I miss on from life number 1? So for example, if you were to stay at your job, stay where you live right now, right? And maybe you like the job that you're already doing, but you want something better. But who knows, maybe life number 2 is the right thing. And you decide to stay where you are right now, stay in your city, remain with your friends, remain with your wife, whatever it is. And what are the things you would gain? You would gain security, comfort, maybe you get a certain amount of fulfillment from your job, right, and security that you wouldn't get from life number 1. But what would you miss on from life number 1? Maybe you miss on all the possibilities of like building a business, working for yourself, traveling the world, and starting your own freelance business, consulting business, whatever your dream is. You'd miss out on all that. Doing that sort of visualization really will help you out, really to make more informed decision. If you were to be on your deathbed 80 years from now, 60 years from now, however old you are, ask yourself, like, which one would I regret the most, right? Which one would I regret the most? Like, which one would I be more happy of fulfilling also? So, would you be more happy fulfilling life number 1 or life number 2? Really, really, you want to look ahead here. Those are for like the big important decisions. And reason number 4 why you have trouble making decisions is good old-fashioned fear. Fear. Of course, aren't you afraid right now? Like, if you were to be really honest with yourself, the reason why you're perfectionist is because you're afraid. The reason why you look at other options is because you're afraid. The reason why you think you don't know who you are is actually you know who you are and you know what you want, but you've convinced yourself that you don't. Maybe because of fear, right? Maybe you have some semblance of who you are. You kind of know who you are, but because of fear, you just cannot take action. Let's say you've done the 3 things. You know who you are, you've overcome perfectionism, and you've weighed out, you've cut away all other options. Now you know kind of what you got to do, but just can't act upon it. Why? Fear. So look at right now in your life, what are you afraid of? Like, what is picture yourself, if you were to take that decision, what would be the worst case scenario that could happen? The absolute worst case scenario. Try to picture that. Okay, so let's say I go to Italy, pursue my dream of, starting my business, whatever. And then, maybe like shit, maybe like I lose all my money, it doesn't work out. And then the worst case scenario probably is I just come back to Canada and, keep my old boring job and then, save up some more money and maybe try again later or whatever it is. Or maybe you can relocate and start your business in Canada. Who knows? Whatever it is, okay? So picture like the worst case scenario that could ever happen, okay? But actually picture it in detail, like the most realistically worst case scenario that could happen. Like for example, I'll give you an example about starting Nameless, starting my consulting life coaching business, okay? What's the worst case that could happen is that I go on a few calls with people and I get, a few no's and nobody wants to buy from me, whatever. It's like, okay, then what? Okay, but I guess I'll just keep making free videos. And worst case scenario, I keep my old job for a bit longer. Maybe instead of quitting my job in 1 year from now, maybe I'll quit it in 5 years from now because I had a setback, whatever. That's like the worst case scenario that could happen, okay? Now that you have the worst case scenario, what actually what would realistically happen if you were to take that action? Realistically, what were to happen? Let's say I started my consulting coaching business, is that yes, I get a few no's, I get a few objections about people who want to get coaching with me, but at the end of the day, at least get a few sales, at least get a few clients, and actually start coaching and making money. Yes, it would take me a bit of time, but if I had the courage to continue and all that, which I do, and which you can develop if you're lacking, yes, eventually I'd be somewhat successful. Realistically, what will happen? Yeah. So make those 2 distinctions in mind. And also ask yourself, if the worst thing were to happen, the worst case scenario, how could I recover from that? How could I cap the downside so I make sure that if the worst case scenario happens, that I'm prepared, right? So for me, it's like, okay, well, if that were to happen, that I don't get any clients, I make sure that I save enough money for at least 3 to 6 months so that if I were to make 0 money for 3 to 6 months, that I'd be fine. Okay, that's just an example. So look at a way to cap the downside, okay? And now, then at the end, ask yourself, really, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? What are you afraid of? Really, just, you want to fucking, plow through that. You want to cut right through the chase. What are you waiting for? Now you got all the tools. You've decided this is the right decision for you because you know who you are. You know what you want, right? From busting thing number 1. Number 2, now you've overcome perfectionism, you realize there's no perfect time for it, and you've cut away all the other options. Now what's next? To take fucking action. And I understand, maybe you still struggle with that. Indecision and lack of clarity in your life, that's stopping you from taking decisions. And you gotta solve this, man. You really gotta solve this. And I want you to picture yourself, what if you never solve this? I want you to picture in your head right now, what would be the implications if you were to continue struggling with all that? If you were to continue struggling with not being able to make decisions, not being able to have clarity in your life, what would be the consequences of that? Now, I don't think that would be nice, right? So now picture yourself. What if you actually solve this? or if you actually were able to make decisions, but if you're actually able to, get a handle of your life, know exactly where you're headed, and every decision that you take, that it has meaning. And if you struggle with any of those things, and if you think that having clarity in your life would help you out and all that, then I want you to book a free consultation with me. And you can do that by clicking on the link below in the description. I'll put a link right there where you can pretty much book a call with me. So don't forget to do that, okay? And then can help you have more clarity in your life, and I'll talk to you later. Okay, peace.